Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Now we are starting our 2024 movie reviews and this is going to be the first of quite a few I imagine, and this is going to be for the film Night Swim, directed by Bryce Howard and stars Wyatt Russell and Kerry Condon. This tells the story of a family who move into a new house that has a history of tragedy within their swimming pool. Soon enough, strange occurrences start to happen in the water once again. Now, January horror doesn't really have the best track record, does it? If a movie studio doesn't think it's going to do too well or doesn't have much confidence in, they always seem to come in the first month of the year. And with this being Blumhouse, they usually hit and miss as well. So I went into this not really having too many high hopes. Now, I gotta say, for the first two acts especially, I kind of got into this movie. It was moving along at a very nice pace, and I was always intrigued about the mystery of this very dangerous swimming pool, because every time someone got into the damn thing, you knew something was gonna happen, and you kind of feel for the characters because they have no clue or no idea, but you also want them to get in there just to see how this scene is going to play out and if there's going to be any little bits of story progression here that you can try and pin together, because I always wanted to know the backstory of why this was happening and why at this location. So for me, I was quite invested there. And if you've got a phobia of swimming pools, especially people at a young age, I mean, I kind of did when I was younger, I don't think this movie's going to help in that department really at all. I do feel like the scare scenes are played out pretty well in this movie. And I say scare scenes, let me just rephrase that to creepy scenes, because this movie doesn't really rely on jump scares or cheap little gimmicks here and there with sound effects just thrown in when something happens, or it doesn't use a lot of tension to build to a big crescendo, which can be good when done well, but most of the time they're just thrown into generic horror movies, and I definitely thought this movie was going to be full of them. But no, this one just lets the scene play out, and even when the scarier parts are happening, it's sort of kept on a fine balance. So it's easy for the viewer to just watch it and go, oh yeah, I know this is a little bit creepy here, but it's kind of part of the story. I get where it's going there. So it doesn't rely on the audience jumping out of their seats or more veteran horror fans seeing it coming. So that was appreciated. I gotta say, I really liked the performances in this film. I thought all the cast done a great job. I really liked this family of four, but the main focus of them is Wyatt Russell's character. And I really like the guy and everything I've seen him in. I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he was my favourite part of that show. I know I'm on a little bit of an island there, but he was just a character I love to hate. And here he plays this baseball star who's been struck down with a bit of an illness, and he's got to put his career on hold, which he's really bummed out about. And when he discovers this pool in the house, he sort of sees his recovery move at a gradual pace every time he gets in the damn thing. So why wouldn't you go in it? But what I liked about that is the pool sort of becoming a character itself, because his family members are all sort of happy for him, and, you know, it's sort of coaxing them in to its bigger plan. So I thought that was pretty smart. And Kerry Condon, who I absolutely loved in The Banshees of Inisherin, does a great job here, along with the two young child actors, or one is a teenager and one's a child. But I think young actors being annoying are a thing of the past. I hardly ever see that these days. I don't know about you guys, but in the 80s and early 90s, there seemed to just be a plethora of them. And I just think it has improved a lot, and this is no exception. I kind of just wish they were given more material to work with. Their story arcs aren't the best things going for the movie, and they are tied very slightly to make the third act up, but it doesn't really feel like there's an end goal there. And if there was story arcs going in, they're just never really tapped into, so that was a bit of a shame. And whilst the whole swimming pool part of the movie are good and, you know, definitely stood out above everything else, and the swimming pool being the main horror focus of the film, it still just feels like a movie we've seen 100 times before. A family moves into a house and the house is haunted, but instead this time it's the swimming pool that's kind of haunted. It's the same sort of thing, just using a different part of the home, really, isn't it? And you know what? This is starting to become a little bit of a horror trope these days. We see generic horror movies put out all the time where the plot is characters move to a house and bad shit starts to happen. But I just feel like it's becoming more of a trope now. Like characters falling over and hurting their leg, or go to phone the police and the phone battery dies. Yeah, I think you can throw this plot line in with them now. We see it that much. And when the third act came along, this was the part I was looking forward to the most, after being quite intrigued for the first two acts, after why everything was happening. But there's an attempt there to make something interesting, but it just kind of falls flat. And I don't think they executed it very well, unfortunately. It just goes down a very boring road to its disappointing climax, really. It was easily the worst part of the movie for me. And I gotta say, the CGI in the third act kind of ruined it even more. They use it for simple things on characters' faces. Like, I don't want to give too much away or spoil the movie for anyone, but there are certain moments where CGI is used on human faces, and it could have easily been done with makeup effects, and it would have looked way more effective. It hardly ever works, CGI, in horror movies for me personally, because it just takes away any scare factor whatsoever. And when you're using it for things like this, that could be really done to way more effect, it just takes me out even more. And I was just kind of watching it going, yeah, I think this movie's done now, isn't it? And this only confirmed that January doesn't have the greatest track record when it comes to horror, and this is the most January of January horror films. It's just not very memorable when it's all said and done. Look, don't get me wrong, it's watchable, but in a few weeks' time, I don't think I'm going to remember this film all too well. It's not something I'm probably going to ever revisit, and it'll probably only be remembered for the first horror film I went to watch in 2024. So that's kind of sad. I'm just going to go ahead and rate this movie now. I'm going to give Night Swim a 5 out of 10. 2024 has got off to a bit of a wet start. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this review. Please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if horror is your sort of thing. What did you think of Night Swim? Leave it in the comments down below and I'll try and get back to you all, I promise. Thanks so much everyone. You all take care and I'll see you on the next video.